I want to ask Mike Zullo what he thinks about all this, working this case for so long, and what his gut tells him is going on here, because it's like total lies from them, totally crazy. This is such amazing news, and it's not like we need MSM to pick this up for it to be big. Normally, they ridicule and twist everything we say. I mean, we're talking 100 articles a day attacking us, 0 on this. That shows how scared they are. They're running scared. Mike?
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Good, friend. Thanks for coming on. What an amazing time to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. You could. I guess you could look at it like that. You know, to put it in a nutshell, to address the question you just asked, we really don't know what is going on. We know that we made every endeavor to bring Mr. Montgomery, his information, to federal authorities. Like I said earlier, we contacted Larry Klayman for his assistance, and under the direction of Sheriff Arpaio, we brought Mr. Montgomery to Judge Royce Lamberth, who used to be the head of the FISA court. Judge Lamberth was the FISA judge that authorized the bin Laden wiretaps in his living room at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we got him there. The dilemma was, for all involved, is where do we go with this? Mr. Montgomery, during his tenure as a contractor, the FBI, and this is in court documents, had illegally executed a search warrant on his home with fabricated affidavits to a judge. And that was all bared out in a trial. He did not, for obvious reasons, trust the FBI or want to work with the FBI. That posed a problem for us, because the only other place we could have gone to at that time would have been the Department of Justice. And I believe at that time it was still Eric Holder. That was a problem. We didn't know where to take it. As this unfolded, Larry Klayman was successful in persuading Mr. Montgomery to talk to the FBI, which he did. My understanding, you'll have to clarify this with Larry, is Mr. Montgomery brought in a sampling of some documentation that the FBI vetted. In return, they contacted him and gave him what is known as production immunity. And he brought in, I believe it was like 600 million records. He provided them that information. Some time goes by, and they call him back, and they now gave him testimonial immunity. Well, and you know, that's the perplexing part of all of this. This was exposed in a civil proceeding as a side issue. It was put out there in the public. Information that was gathered was turned over to plaintiffs' attorneys. It was turned over in open court. It was put on, it was put out there for the world to see. The documentation you have now was actually leaked by ACLU attorneys to the press out here in Phoenix, one particular left hard-leaning publication. I had recorded conversations with Mr. Montgomery in our very first meetings with him, because we didn't know him. We didn't know if he was even real. And they leaked that information. And when the ACLU attorney stood up in federal court and said she did it, there was not even an admonishment. Nobody seemed to care.
Wow.
This information was turned over at that point in time. My understanding is Mr. Montgomery brought information that he did not share with us. And I want your audience to understand what we were trying to accomplish. We were not looking for classified information. What we were trying to do was validate some of the claims of Montgomery through the civilian side of this. In other words, you claim you have this civilian information. Let us vet it. Let us find out. The personal information on a lot of the 151,000 people was absolutely correct, although none of them can identify the bank accounts that were alleged to be theirs. That gets to be very interesting, because those bank accounts, it is suspected that they are actually fraudulent transactions. Every one of those bank accounts had accounts in it with high speculative real estate, gas and oil, stock plays. Correct. That's all been turned over. Everything involving this case has been turned over. And for 2 years now, since Mr. Klayman brought him to the federal authorities, the FBI, we have heard nothing. Nobody has said that this information is garbage, and nobody has said it's creditable. So we don't know, as within our jurisdictional powers, we don't have the jurisdiction to further this. This had to be done on a federal level. And that's where it stands today. What's bringing this to the forefront now is the fact that a lot of stuff that Mr. Montgomery told us, and you have to understand, there are conversations that take place. Mr. Montgomery had alerted us to things, and I gave you one highlight yesterday of the attorney-client privilege breach that Mr. Snowden did not release for about 3 or 4 months after Mr. Montgomery alerted us to this, that start to manifest in the news. And now today we're seeing a lot of information come out in the news, things that Montgomery told us were going on. You know, he tried to become a whistleblower. I believe, I could be wrong on the count, it was about a dozen times. He brought all the correspondence that he tried to go forward with this, and he was shut down at every turn. And Mr. Montgomery.
Sure, and I mean, it sounds like this is when Snowden had first been coming out a few years ago. So probably all that probably added to him wanting to then get it out.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. You know, Dennis tried to bring the information forward. He could not. When Sheriff Arpaio saw the 151,000 names, he became alarmed because those are 151,000 citizens, let alone his own information is in there, but that wasn't really what was motivating him. There are 151,000 citizens, and this is an identity theft case at the very least. So it needed to be investigated. No, Alex, you know, the information is so voluminous, and a lot of that information does bear out to be correct, that you really have to start to wonder, how did any one human being get this unless they were doing something with use of very high-powered, sophisticated computer apparatus?
Well,
actually, Mr. Montgomery, and this is public, Mr. Montgomery was a contractor who developed the hacking software that could penetrate firewalls of computers, breach them, take over as the administrator, and remain undetected for about an hour and a half, and download whatever they want.
Ghosting, yeah.
And that's my understanding.
Wow.
Wow. No, it's like it's no big deal. It's like the motive here was to simply discredit the whole investigation and discredit Montgomery. That seems to be the motive. And look, Montgomery, for whatever people want to say about him, this is how I described it to Dr. Corsi earlier today. You could be the biggest financial con man in the world. Everything about you could be a lie. Everything you say could be a lie. But at the end of the day, you know what? You still have a real check in your pocket because you got it from someplace. Well, and the fact is this information would validate Montgomery's claims. Everything about Montgomery, everything else about Mr. Montgomery is in the periphery as far as I'm concerned, because you can take the information. If the information is valid, 80, 90, 100%, 20%, 30%, then the question becomes, how could you acquire this?
Well,
that is what I'm getting at. And I want to make a big distinction between Montgomery and Snowden. Montgomery didn't flee the country. Montgomery has been petitioning to sit and tell somebody what has gone on. He has been trying.
Which is what you're supposed to do under law.
Well, you know, Alex, it's like I don't even understand my country anymore. None of this makes any sense. It's pretty bad when a law enforcement officer the caliber of Sheriff Arpaio, a former federal agent, a sitting judge are in a dilemma as to where do we go? Because this has gone silent. And, you know, silence usually tells you a lot. You interview someone, a suspect, and you don't get a direct answer or a lot of big pause, a lot of silence. Well, you kind of know the answer you're going to get next is going to be a lie. So you look at this and you say, wow, everybody wants to be quiet about this. Everybody just wants to sweep this guy under the rug. And look, I am not an advocate for Dennis Montgomery. I know the amount of time and effort Detective Makowitz and I put into this. I know the time and effort the sheriff has put into this. I know the time and effort Larry Klayman has put into this. And all we're asking is, please look at this and let us know, is this true? Because if this is true, our problems are far greater than anybody. Well, I think, Alex, the other thing that is really, really scary in this whole thing is it appears to me that our federal government, what we recognize as our federal government,
is rogue,
is powerless to stop this.
Trump's in there and Sessions is in there, and they're all in mutiny against him, doing whatever they want.
Well, and there are good people in the CIA,
Absolutely,
and the NSA, and the FBI. And, you know, we don't have whistleblower protection laws that truly protect these people. You know, we don't have any way to have people come forward when this kind of activity is going on because they're going to be publicly destroyed. They're going to be destroyed for their life. And these people can't come forward. So, look, we have patriots in the NSA, CIA. My hat is off to those guys. They do stuff. That's what it appears to be. And there are
A
rogue
couple of
entities
seconds.
within there that are doing this. Go ahead, Jerry. Do you want to say something? I think I hear
Yeah,
Jerry.
I want to say, look, I've worked with Mike now for since 2011. We worked
We have
together,
too.
and I want to say that Mike's as honest as they come. He does not want to be doing this. I mean, we've been working on this for days and actually a couple of weeks. And Mike, it's like, pulling teeth. He has other things to do. He's not even in the sheriff's office anymore. He has a life to lead and a family to take care of. He doesn't need to be doing this. And it takes great courage for him to do it. I'm telling you, Mike speaks the truth. It's carefully put together. He's not going to tell you something is so.
Sure,
But what I want to do, where I'm, we've got to understand that Sheriff Arpaio has the potential here to go to, prison, to go to jail for 6 months on a trumped up charge where
and if they can get him, they can get us all.
and we've got to come to his defense. We got to demand that Attorney General Sessions look at the malfeasance, the misbehavior, the criminal activity of Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and Tom Perez in rigging a prosecution, judge tampering, illegal electronic surveillance.
Well, on Sheriff Arpaio's account, if the timeline, and I'm going by memory, so I'm not going to give you dates, but my understanding is this alleged wiretapping, and you have to understand, I have to say alleged because we can't verify it. Correct. And this is when they were pursuing Sheriff Arpaio under a criminal charge. That criminal case was dropped. And at the same time, the individuals that were propelling that case moved over to a private law firm. And then out of the clear blue, a civil proceeding ensued. Now, my understanding is during that criminal case, Sheriff Arpaio's attorneys requested from the DOJ their discovery. And they were told point blank, you are the discovery, you're not getting anything. But then they dropped the case. And you have to ask yourself why. Was it possibly because they were up on the phones and they couldn't disclose they were up on the phones? I mean, nobody knows. And the civil thing is really nothing more than a doorway under the old administration to gain entrance into sheriff's offices, law enforcement offices, and federally control them. That was the goal. And now you have Jeff Sessions who's coming out saying, we're not going to do that anymore. You have Donald Trump trying to reinstitute the same activities conducted by regular law enforcement, given authority by the federal government to conduct, that were taken away by the Obama. Well, and Alex, this goes to morality. The biggest problem here is, look, this technology is wonderful and it could have very great assets to law enforcement if it is used in a moral and just fashion. And it's not. And the unsuspecting public just want to believe that their law enforcement agencies, especially the federal agencies, are of that moral standard. Well, that's not happening anymore. That's what makes this so dangerous. Well, parallel construction would afford them an opportunity to literally gin up a charge against you. And I want your listeners to understand something else. I was reading this not too long ago. My understanding now is there is computer software that takes voice imprints of your voice, and you could literally have an undetected, altered conversation take place that you weren't even party to.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it is very alarming, very concerning, and nobody is safe. Look, I personally, I don't really care. You know what I mean? You knock yourself out, but that's not the point. The point is what can be done with this? What can be done to destroy you? What can be done to black? It's because they believe they are above it all. And now they take our statutes and they hide behind our statutes to protect the program, protect the information. There's no oversight. That's the issue. There are special programs, I've come to learn, special access programs that are even out of the purview of Congress. Well, who is issuing the oversight? Who's running these programs, and then how do you know what they're doing with these programs?
It's Pandora's box.
It's Orwellian isn't even the word anymore. I don't even know what you call this. But in the wrong hands, it is a weapon that's worse than a nuclear warhead, because in a nuclear warhead, you're dead. You're going to have to live with whatever these people do to you. So this is a problem. It's huge, and it's something that our, quote, government, our elected officials really need to rein in and control to some extent.
And then they're spying on Judge Arpaio during his court case. They're spying on Trump, going back, to the first year of Obama and beyond. It is just insane. Well, Mike, thank you so much for all you've done. If any other whistleblowers or folks want to contact you, I know you probably don't want more work to do, doing this on your own, but I've met you. You've been here. You're a great guy. And I got to tell you, listen, as bad as it gets, I think we're starting to turn the corner. So, I'm going to give people a pep talk. And by the way, I won't do a pep talk if there isn't reasons to have a pep talk. I see a lot of positive things happening. And, we're pulling teeth here. We're digging out a bunch of entitled, out-of-control social engineers, a bunch of leftists who run this. And they're just out to play God. And no wonder they're so arrogant. But, they're not so arrogant now. They're starting to get the fear of God in them, Mike.
Well, Alex, thank you for everything that you do. You, Drudge, WND, others out there, because we don't have a voice. The blackout that you talked about, it is exactly what they are doing. If they don't report it, it never happens. So thank you.
Thank you. Please, we're in this together. We're all got families. We're in this together. God bless you. Thank you, Mike.
You too, brother.